talk running backs now as we continue to kind of go through a position group every single day. Obviously, the group wasn't as productive as we wanted last year. There could be a lot of reasons for that. We'll look ahead to this year, but first, let's go back. What did you see last year, why LSU wasn't able to do the things they generally have done in this program on the ground?
Yeah, the offensive line just wasn't getting enough push. They weren't opening enough of holes consistently enough for the running game to really have any sort of success that they would like to have. And also, the running backs weren't explosive. They weren't getting those big 20-yard gains. They weren't getting those long touchdowns run other than Emory against Alabama, but that was probably the only big one in the season. So to get your average up, you need to have those explosive runs, and you need to move the chains and do that consistently throughout a football game. So until they do that, their running game is not going to be anywhere where they want it to be.
They ran the ball every once in a while. They ran it against South Carolina exceptionally well. They were able to run it a little bit against Florida, but those two defenses were not very good.
Yeah.
When they stood up against the defenses that were, had a pulse, they weren't very good. So let's move to this year's roster, this year's team. Let's start with Ty Davis-Price, who has missed a bunch of time, was back out there yesterday. I can tell you, in going to practice yesterday, he looked good. He was in a no-contact jersey. Looked in shape, looked quick, looked explosive, certainly not hitting, going through the drills full speed. He was running through the cones and looked to be healthy. I think he's well on his way to be back in that rotation, back to practice time, back to getting involved in the scrimmages. What do you think about the young junior?
Yeah, I think he has to step up. I think going into last year, I think that was everyone expected him to have a breakout season, and it kind of didn't happen. So going into this year, he really has an opportunity to really make a lot of plays. He's got to get the bulk of the carries. He's got to be probably the starter if John isn't starting, but he's going to be the second running back for sure. So he's going to get snaps. So he needs to step up. He needs to be, the running back he knows he can be. I think he said it a couple weeks ago. There's been a lot of backs come through this program. There's a standard of play that needs to be played at, and he knows he hasn't quite got there yet. So if the running game needs to definitely be where they want it to be, TDP has to step up and play a huge role.
He's a walking cliche to me. He is big, fast, strong, which is a cliche, but he's big, he's fast, and he's strong. And you see when he gets his pads going downhill and he's running straight downhill like he did in that Florida game as a freshman, he's a load. And he's plenty fast to run with DBs. He can run over linebackers. Like he's big, fast, strong. The side to side, how he does in space, in the passing game, in pass protection, all that remains to be seen for him. But he's big, fast, strong. If they can open lanes, he can make things happen. Now, John Emory, we've talked about him a ton. Yesterday, saw him drop a few balls, multiple. I think 2 or 3 in the drills that I was watching. There's a little bit of rain falling down. Not an excuse, but it was. I left because of it. Was sick of sitting out in the rain. But he did drop a couple balls. We're told the LASIK surgery, he should be able to see. He should be able to be more involved in the passing game. He's more the complete package to me because he's fast. He's agile. He generally catches the ball fairly well. He's explosive. He's got all the tools you would need, which is why he was the number 1 running back in the country coming out of high school and why Georgia and LSU were wrestling over him to the end. But again, 2 years down, limited production.
Yeah, another very close similar situation to TDP, a guy who has all the potential in the world, who's shown flashes, who you saw them run against Alabama. You see the speed that he possesses. The kid can really break out if he really just puts everything together. The offensive line, they've done a way better job during this camp run blocking. So I intend on them keeping that up. And if they do, Emory can really hit his head on the goalpost a lot this season.
I'm counting on it. Look, I'm going to be pretty upfront about that for the next 2.5 weeks. You'll get tired of me hearing it. I think this is his year to shine. I've got more confidence in John Emory right now as a breakout running back and a guy who gets LSU back on track in the ground game than I do Ty Davis-Price. Would it stun me totally if Ty Davis-Price became the number 1 back and ran for 1,200 yards this year? No. It would surprise me. I think John Emory is more so close to that guy. We've talked about the freshman. We'll briefly touch on him again because I know you're so high on him. But once again, Corey Kiner in the scrimmage sounds like he showed out.
Yeah, just phenomenal plays, hurling the defender, stiff-arming people. And that's what I was waiting to see. Going through all the first couple practices and everything, he kind of didn't pop. I kind of really didn't see him getting to the second level, making those plays. But as he practice going on, day by day goes on, he continues to make plays. And so I definitely see him continuing that this fall. The kid is so explosive, so low to the ground, so hard to bring down. He's going to be a load to take down, so I'm excited to see him run.
I thought the most interesting comment that Ed Ogeron made about maybe the entire scrimmage, other than that the defensive line was dominating, was that Corey Kiner was not super impressive when they were just in helmets. and then they put the pads on, and he became impressive. That means when we start actually playing football, guys have to tackle him, get him to the ground. All of a sudden, he becomes a more impactful player. That, to me, stands out.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. Just like, especially with freshmen coming in, they talk all that noise all summer. We're in the weight room, we're sprinting, we're doing all this stuff. But the real fun doesn't start till you put those pads on, and I think Corey really takes that on right ahead, and he's excited for those opportunities, especially in open space. I've seen him time and time again make guys miss, and these are high level athletes that he's making miss. So it goes to show you what he can do. So I'm excited for him for sure.
And a guy that does flash when the pads aren't on is Armani Goodwin, because he's a track star, and he's a smaller guy, more compact, but still fairly filled out. The speed is where he makes his money.
Yeah, ridiculous speed. That's a guy out of all the running backs to me he's having the best camp so far. He's on the second level, seems like every practice, getting up there, running by people, making plays, catching the ball at the backfield. So he's going to have a role. We're going to have a deep backfield, and Armani's going to be definitely helping out with that.
I lean on you a ton on the on-field stuff, the X and O stuff, but certainly in this area, we're gonna really heavily lean on you here. Okay, the interesting thing for me is that Armani Goodwin and Corey Kiner are not from Louisiana. And that's not, shocking that we have two guys on the team that aren't from Louisiana. But when you run through the history of this program over the last 20 years and you think about the impactful running backs, it's startling, the impact from Louisiana. Now, look, I realize that's the majority of the roster has far more Louisiana guys than not. But this is something else. When you go back to Clyde, to Darius Geis, to Fournette, Darrell Williams, Jeremy Hill, Kenny Hilliard, Alfred Blue, Michael Ford. Then you go to Stephen Ridley and Spencer Ware in there, who were from Mississippi and up in Ohio. But then you got Charles Scott, Keelan Williams, Jacob Hesser, Trenton Holiday. Go back to Adai, Texas, Ali Broussard, Justin Vincent. That's 20 years of lead guys, and 14 out of 17 of them are from the state of Louisiana.
Yeah, it's just an amazing pool of talent that we have to recruit from year in and year out. And I think that's what kind of got us together. Our recruiting class is just that family. That's something that they preach over and over, just being a family. And then guys just knowing, being from Louisiana, for a lifetime, you're going to have your LSU family, and they're never going to turn your back on you. You're going to always be able to come back to the facility, always be able to come back to the games. And that's what guys in Louisiana know. And they know that everyone loves their Tigers. People bleed purple and gold, and it's really a beautiful thing to see.
I'm going to stretch this. I realize I'm making a stretch, and you may tell me that's the dumbest thing you ever heard, but I'm going to give it a swing. Louisiana, for a long time in high school football, was basically smash mouth, toss lead, run the veer at times, option. I mean, teams like West Monroe, Acadiana, they're just running the football. John Curtis, of course, built on running the ball. Outside of Evangel, everybody is just running it. And for a long time, Louisiana did not produce quarterbacks really well at all. And over the last 4 or 5 years, Louisiana has caught up with everybody, and they're running the 7-on-7s, and they're spreading the field, and they're throwing it. And here all of a sudden comes some real talent out of the state of Louisiana at the quarterback position. You start talking about Walker Howard, Arch Manning, Eli Holstein. They've really had some guys that can really play at the quarterback spot. And then all of a sudden LSU goes and gets 2 running backs from outside the state. Is it possible that that Louisiana is transitioning away from the era and the generations of the running back, and we're going to be spreading it out? There's going to be wide receivers and quarterbacks coming all the time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. We definitely going up, playing Parkview Baptists of the world. They're running triple option, read option, and it's just what you see. And then I think now this 7-on-7 era, this TikTok era, I should call it, it's just way cooler to throw side-on passes like Mahomes and do all those things. So that's the direction that it is. It's kind of like the Steph Curry effect in basketball. Mahomes has that effect with football, and everyone wants to run out the pocket and throw the ball around. So I definitely see that a lot more now, and it's good, man. I think, bringing in Joe, kind of showing what you could do with all these athletes, spreading it around, it's kind of opening some people's eyes.
I think it was a stretch. Louisiana still, I keep saying LSU, we're going to get them all, but Louisiana is going to keep producing great running backs. It's just a matter of, what they look like and what their roles are going to be. Maybe some more of them look a little bit like Clyde, and they're way better in space and catching the ball and running screens and in the spread offense as opposed to big physical backs. Just the game's cyclical. It moves like that. Now, this is less of a hypothetical and more of just simply your opinion. What's the best way to handle a running back room? You were the lead dog most of your time at LSU. It was going to be you, and then you were going to sprinkle in some carries outside. Leonard was like that, even with Darius Geis there, but we've talked a lot about the 11 running back room, and then, of course, talked about the 07 running back room where they were spreading the carries out big time. What's the best way to do it?
To me, I want a lead dog. I want a guy that I can trust in there. Really, if he can stay in all 3 downs, that's what I would prefer. Just let him get that rhythm, let him get the flow of the game, and really just have a guy that can really go for 1,500 yards that you can trust, and then really have a change of pace guy behind him. That's how I would do it. But there's nothing wrong with the platoon system, having 4 or 5 guys that you can rotate in there. But to me, I think the most success when you have like a Najee Harris type situation where guys just in there the whole game really having success.
We had Chuck Oliver on yesterday. I love him. He had me on his show last week, and he said, for whatever reason, I just think running backs get better the more often they touch the ball in a single game. You buy that?
Oh, yeah. 100%. I can tell you time and time again. I think I go back to that Iowa game, the last game I played. Started out hot in the first quarter. Second, third quarter, it was iffy. Kind of had some other guys in there, and then the fourth quarter, they kind of let me do my thing in the fourth quarter, and I just kind of felt the momentum of the game. The guys started getting tired; they didn't want to tackle me, and you just felt the momentum. And I think that's a beautiful thing as a running back. In high school, I was getting 35, 40 carries a game, and then in college, sometimes 10, sometimes 15. It kind of varies, but I definitely, maybe it's selfish of myself, but I prefer to be the main guy for sure.
Hey, I'm listening to you. All right, so look at this room, look at this unit. What's the best way for Kevin Falk to run this thing?
I think I would have Emory in there, and then I would have Ty doing the short yardage stuff. Like if it's 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, have him doing that stuff, and then I would find ways to get Corey Kiner and Armani the ball in open space. Do that, and I think you can have 4. I think they'd be totally fine with 4 this year. I think they all have things that they can do to help this offense, and I think that'd be the best way for Coach Falk to do that.